Okay, so I have a friend who asked me a question about CSS modules. Actually, I'll paste a link to his question. So this is Justin McMurdy. We worked together for a while, and I converted him to CSS modules when we worked together, or at least we were working on it at the time, or working with CSS modules at the time. And yeah, so he's asking me why would I, or what does glamorous give me that CSS modules doesn't? And so I was just going to explain that really quick. So this is based off of the glamorous help thing here. So I'm going to go ahead and just get rid of these things. We're going to add a styles.css.js. So I'm not really going to use CSS modules because you can't do that as far as I know. Maybe you can. Here, let's just try it out. Let's just see if we can use CSS modules. Styles.css and button color red. Okay, and then we'll come back in here and we'll import styles from styles. Get rid of these things and this thing. Oh, here, we'll leave that for now. And we'll just have a div and a button with class name equals styles. See if that works. Oh, whoops, .css. Okay, yeah, so you can't use CSS modules inside Code Sandbox. So what I'm going to do instead is I'll just add a .js, and then we'll do a module.exports equals export const button, export const button equals button. Okay, and we'll just actually simulate CSS modules in here by using Glamour. So we'll import CSS from Glamour. I think this still thinks it's inside of a CSS file. So I'm just gonna jump back in. Okay, we'll just do styles.js. We'll just pretend for a moment that this is in fact a CSS modules thing. What the junk? Okay, let's refresh here really quick. Okay, cool. So yeah, this way I can pretend that I am inside of a CSS modules thing. So CSS background color is red. And then in here, styles.button. Oh, you know what? I was doing it wrong all along the whole time. Star as styles. Okay, anyway. Yeah, hopefully this all makes sense. Normally with CSS modules, you'd import a CSS file, you'd get the thing, and you'd apply the class name like this. So these arguments actually apply for the same, for the same thing. Why would you use glamorous over just raw glamour? But the whole idea here is, well, there are a couple ideas here. One of them is composability. So let's say that I want to reuse these button styles in a couple places, so I could have a couple of buttons and apply the class name to the button itself a couple of times. That's repetition, so let's go and it's unnecessary and it's pretty easy to abstract. So let's abstract that. We'll make a button component, and we'll return button class name equals styles.button. Okay, and then we can use the button component instead. And we'll get rid of the class names here. Okay, but that's not going to work because I'm not forwarding props. So let's go ahead and take the props and we'll apply all the props here. Okay, cool. So now we have the same thing. So what about, let's say we have like some other class name that we want to apply. Let's say we're using like a bootstrap or something. So we're going to say class name equals btn and btn primary. Okay, so now that messes everything up because we're passing the props and we're going to override our class name. So now what we need to do is we're going to say, okay, let's return that, but we're going to pull out class name, and then we get the props. We'll default the, or here, we'll just apply class name and styles.button. Okay, great. And let's take a look at what the DOM looks like now. So also, by the way, I have the chat open in Twitch, so feel free to hit me up if you have questions. But here, yeah, now we're getting undefined in a couple places. Okay, well, let's add a default there. Okay, so now we're gonna get rid of that undefined problem. Okay, great. We have an empty space, but you know, who cares? We don't really need to worry about that. You could use like the class name or class names module and make this a little bit nicer. But what I like to call this or refer to this as is the song and dance of wiring up class names to components. When I'm using glamorous or when I'm using styled components or glamour, raw glamour, I'm often concerned about class names. I care about class names. I don't really care about making sure that they're unique because the tool I'm using will make them unique, whether I'm using CSS modules or glamour. But wiring up these components to the class names is kind of it's a song and dance. I don't like doing that. The other thing is like just the idea of composability is it's great, but how do I really know which one of these is going to have precedence? Like because they're all class names, it kind of depends on the order of insertion into the style sheet, and I don't really have too much control over that. And so like making sure that the CSS that's applied is deterministic requires me to not only test it manually myself and make sure of that, but also it requires that I make that nobody changes the order in which the style sheets are applied. So that is kind of a real bummer as far as I'm concerned. I don't like having to deal with that. So the way that I solve this in a like the way that we would do this using glamorous instead is we could say const const button equals glamorous button, and then you put your styles right in here. So let's do that. We'll pull, actually here we'll migrate this over time. Let's get rid of this. So instead of just doing straight up glamorous, let's say that you're working in a CSS engine or a CSS modules code base. What you can do is you could say, okay, give me a glamorous button that has styles button applied. So you can actually pass the class name itself, and it will effectively do all of this stuff for you. So that's great. And now we have the same result. Now there's still not a whole lot we can do about precedence or like the insertion order, but there's a great plugin. I'm sure I've got it somewhere that I wrote. It's like just 3 or 4 lines long of saying, okay, anything that is generated, any class name generated from Glamour automatically has the utmost specificity. It's not using bang important. Using IDs and it sticks an ID on the body and stuff. But yeah, so you can ensure for yourself that always the styles that are generated in CSS and JS will have precedence. So that problem is kind of taken care of. The other thing is that when there's a glamorous component, well, let me take a step back. Already this is like much nicer because you make a lot more components than just the button component. So you'll have that song and dance everywhere. It's kind of annoying. And it's often that you'll forget to compose classes together. So like you'll be using a component that you wrote. Oh yeah, I forgot. I can't like pass a class name because I have to accept that and merge them and whatever. So that's annoying. But once you make a glamorous component, you can pass class names, and what's really cool is you can pass some more like glamour generated class names. So if we import glamour, or here we'll do CSS from glamour, and then we do inside of here we'll do CSS color orange. Now that's going to be really not accessible at all, but what's neat about this is glamorous will merge these styles together in a deterministic way. And so even though insertion order might be a little bit different, the actual styles that are applied will always be the same. And you can change the insertion order, doesn't matter. Glamorous will make sure that any class name that's generated from glamour will be merged in a deterministic way. So that's really nice. Here's another thing, is all glamorous components have a CSS prop. And so we could say width is 20 or 200. And you can pass all your CSS props into there. And then like it supports all the same stuff that Glamour supports. So like hover states and pseudo elements and media queries, all of that stuff is totally supported. Animations and all of that. And that's pretty cool because it's all just like right in front of your face, and it's deterministic. So that's pretty neat. The other thing is with some options that you can set, you can also make it so the props are act as CSS properties. So you could say margin top is 40, and then here I'll make that work. So we say button, and then we can provide options. So we say props are CSS overrides true, and then we get our margin top. So I'm thinking about in the future just making that the default and switching this to props are CSS overrides false to turn that off, because I don't know how many people are actually going to care about a margin top prop. I don't know. Seems like that normally you'd want this behavior. But in any case, that can be kind of nice. And what's cool about that is Glamorous actually comes with built-in components that can accept these kind of props. So we can have a div, and then we can use a div here and a div here, and then you can have a margin auto, and width is 100%. And I don't know CSS, so we'll do font size is 20, 30, I don't know. This is it is getting applied. I just don't know CSS. Yeah, oh, that's a bug. I need to update the version of Glamorous because that shouldn't be there. Glamorous is updated, so anyway, yeah, so you can control all of those CSS properties right there. And what's nice about that is you don't have to give this thing a name, because what would the name be? Container or wrapper? And neither one of those names are really all that descriptive. Certainly not more descriptive than what you have here. It's like, I see that. It is clearly a wrapper. I don't need to give it a name to know that's what it is, because that's what it's doing. So it doesn't really need to have a name. So that's really nice. And then one other thing is, and I don't really have a demo for this, but I can show you this thing called Just Glamour React, and this is amazing. So one of the problems with CSS is that you don't know when you break something unless you have a very interesting and complicated regression test suite that can take like screenshots of rendered components and compare them and diff them and whatnot. And so with CSS and JS, because the CSS is generated in the JavaScript, we can actually, during tests, reach in and say, what does that JavaScript look like? And we can take a screen or a snapshot of that and save it to a file and then compare it in the future. So you can make a CSS only change, and it will give you what the difference is all over your code base. So you say, I'm going to change the button width to be 20 pixels, then all over your code base, all the tests that are doing snapshots and using the button, you will see what how that impacts your app. It doesn't really show you what the layout looks like, but it certainly is a step better than not testing that at all, which is what most people are doing because it's just so hard to set up that kind of regression test suite thing. So yeah, this is bothering me. What if we did like 500 pixels there? Something like that. Okay, so those are a couple of things. Whether you're using CSS modules or Glamour or some like CSS and JS solution, as great as they all are, I think having a way to create components that carry their styles with them and then allow you to compose those things together is just really, really nice. One other thing I didn't show you, but like we can have other button equals a glamorous button, and you can compose these things together, and you could have color or background color blue, and then we can use this other button and we'll get that background color blue. So you can compose these together in really nice ways. And then there's the theme provider, which is really powerful as well. So those are a couple of reasons why I think that if you're using React, it's really nice to use Glamorous, because it just provides a lot of things out of the box for you. I hope that's helpful, Justin. Let me know if you have any follow-up questions or anything. I missed a question from Ferdinand. How does Glamorous handle the unknown props problem? Yeah, good question, Ferdinand. So if I say, yeah, margin top, for example, I can't forward that onto a button. And so Glamorous will, well, in the case of props are CSS overrides, it assumes that all the props except for like valid HTML attributes we're going to be CSS overrides. And so how it knows valid HTML attributes or valid React props for that particular component type or node type is it stores a list. It uses some dependency that has a list of all the React props, and it will forward the React props and not forward the ones that are not React props. So that is kind of unfortunate because that's like probably a quarter at least of the size of Glamorous. Let's see, dependencies. Yeah, so we have SVG tag names, React HTML attributes, and HTML tag names. So it's kind of big, but can it accept component props to change the style? Component props. I'm not sure. Oh, yeah, that's another thing. Good for dynamic props for sure. So we could say, we'll say props and font size props.big ? Then it's going to be 40. Otherwise, it's going to be 20. Oh, font size on button. I don't know. Let's see. That's weird. I'm going to change this from button to div. Like magic. So then here we can, on this button, we'll say big props.big true. Isn't that like what it does? Oh, props dot not big will be 20, otherwise 40. What? My demo is going down the drain. What is going on here? Button big. Going on. Huh. That is odd. Oh, I think actually big might be a CSS. Oh, sorry. It's this props are CSS overrides. So it assumes that all props are CSS overrides. And there's a way to kind of get around that, but let's just take that off really quick. And see, large font. Is Glamorous used at PayPal? Absolutely. Glamorous was built for PayPal. So it is definitely used at PayPal. What is going on? Okay, well, here, let's go to Glamorous Rocks, and I've got a demo that actually works over there. You go, actually, here's a good thing. Go to the Getting Started guide. Sorry, when I'm live streaming, my computer goes like super duper slow. The website is actually very fast. But here we have dynamic styles. We'll go to the code block, and we'll apply these dynamic styles. So now the HTML code blocks look different than the JavaScript code blocks. And that is because we accept props, and based off of the props.language, if it's HTML, then we're going to return these other styles. So that's the idea. With styled components, it's every single property. Well, not necessarily, but generally it's anywhere inside of that template literal. If you pass a function, then it will call that function with the props, and then you can return a string, and it will process that string. So normally they do it like on a per prop basis. It's kind of the standard there. But I also like that it uses plain objects. Yeah, so Ferdinand is saying that he uses styled components kind of like glamorous, because styled components can actually accept objects instead of string, string. So you can kind of use styled components like glamorous. And if you're doing that, I don't know, I would probably just use glamorous, but I think he wants to switch, so that's cool. Yeah, so anyway, just try this getting started. That's kind of cool. But one thing that I like about Glamorous is that you can really pretty easily just plug it into anything that you're already using, because it accepts class names as any of the arguments here. And so if you're already using class names, then you're already going to benefit. I am actually currently working on a course for Egghead. They don't know it yet, but I'll tell them eventually, for Glamorous, and so hopefully we can get something like that eventually. That'll be helpful. Yeah, so Felipe really likes style sheet in React Native, looking for the same thing on the web. This is actually Glamorous Native was written by Atticus, who felt the same way you do, Felipe. So you might actually look into using Glamorous Native, because then you can use, and there's also Glamorous Primitives, so you could use that too. So anyway, I'm going to wrap this up, I'm going to actually start live streaming in a little bit later, some more downshift stuff. So if anybody's interested to, you could probably just stay on this, on my streaming page. It'll probably be in the next 20 minutes or less. So hopefully, Justin, that was helpful, and I will chat with you all later. Bye.